Welcome back, everyone, to the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect. My name's Jared Mello, and I'm the Shepherd of Black Sheep. And to my right here is Shadow the Night Owl. He is the spirit animal and mascot of the channel. If you avert your attention to the live chat, you will see the flock of black sheep, or Black Sheep Nation, as they are also affectionately known. They also help with a lot of super chats, super stickers, and channel memberships and gifting channel memberships. That helps me to pay for soy-free hootie snacks. Shadow and I both. We are very cognizant of the endocrine disruptors of the world, including microplastics. So we keep our eyes on that. And clearly today, we're going to go over more about, did you see what I did in the thumbnail? D4vd, disgusting, vile. And then what did I say the third one was? Deranged. But it's pretty sick what we're about to listen to in this whole thing. So that's your warning. It's your warning right now that if you're squeamish, this one's rough. Hello there, Jane, Poo Boo, Rooster, Miss Kim, Regina, Autumn. Who else we got? Annie's up here too, I saw. Ruth. No crying in the chat. The chat's like baseball. There's no crying in the flock of black sheep. We'll see. Maybe Rooster will be a stricter master. But Shadow and I, maybe we can try to be understanding sometimes. Oh, they're Mystics Chicks. Now, you're not late. This stream just started 2 minutes ago. How are you doing this evening, Ruth? It is 12:49 a.m. on the East Coast. On the West Coast, we're looking at 9:49 p.m. Now we're going to see what Nancy Grace, Rooster's favorite, we're going to see what she has to say first. And I did see some Nancy Guthrie coverage out there too, but I decided to not go over that today because I go over it all the time. Maybe tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow we'll go over that.
Bombshell tonight. A star musician, multi-millionaire musician, d4vd, aka David Anthony Burke, watches while Celeste Rivas, 13, a little schoolgirl, 13, bleeds out in a hidden kiddie pool. Bleeds out in a kiddie pool while he stands there and watches. Good evening. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. I want to thank you for being with us. This little girl partially skeletonized, her left eye gone.
We don't know why they wanted to keep it secret for so long.
When I read this, I felt nauseous. I got hot all over because I think of Celeste as that little girl. Repeat. I have just reviewed the People's Brief regarding preliminary evidence in State versus David Anthony Burke. And I've got to tell you, I prosecuted a lot of homicides. I've handled cases where bodies were rendered, all sorts of cases. This is beyond practically anything I've ever seen. Joining me, an all-star panel to make sense of what we are learning, straight out to Joseph Scott Moore.
So basically what you're going to hear, I'll give you a warning, is basically D4vd watches her bleed out in this blue pool thing. And it's just hideous. And they go into more details about the condition of her body as well. Awful. Just awful.
Morgan. He is a professor of forensics, Jacksonville State University. He's the author of Blood Beneath My Feet on Amazon. He's the star of a hit podcast series, Body Bags with Joe Scott Morgan. But most important, he is a death investigator with over 10,000 death scenes under his belt. Did you read this? That's a yes, no. Yes, no. Did you read it?
Yes, yes, yes. I sure did.
Okay, I really don't know where to start, but can we start with he, d4vd, David Anthony Burke, stands by and watches Celeste bleed out in a blue kiddie pool. Remember the other night I was talking to you and I said, what we are learning is that there are tiny fragments, microscopic fragments of blue plastic in her body, in the cuts on her body. And we were talking about, where did that come from? What could it be? Now we know that SOB placed this girl to bleed out in a kiddie pool. It's more than I can take in.
Yeah, I'm glad that you're using the term bleed out, because let me explain something to you real quick. The injury, which in my opinion, and I think that the ME coroner holds this opinion as well, is the lethal injury here is going to be the liver. Nancy, if you sustain trauma to the liver, I've seen this with stab wounds, gunshot wounds, and motor vehicle accidents. It is not a quick death. This is an agonizing death. The liver's
I can see you could easily use a chainsaw, though, and just not touch the inflatable pool. You're just touching her.
very vascular next to the brain. It is the most vascular organ in the body. And so as she was laying there, having had this happen to her, where she is attacked with this weapon, and they're not being very specific here. We know it's sharp. Nancy, she would have bled out, or exsanguinated is a fancy term, but bled out into her abdomen. And it's not one of these things like a gunshot wound, all right, to the head or something like that. That's not what we're talking about here. It would have been a slow, agonizing death that she would have gone through. That experience specifically is enough to send a chill up and down your spine.
Trey Lovell, veteran criminal defense attorney, trial lawyer, founder of the Lovett firm, joining us out of this jurisdiction. Now I see why the prosecutor is discussing the death penalty in this case. And yes, d4vd is over 18. That's the cutoff set by the U.S. Supreme Court. The death penalty will apply if it is implemented, if it is handed down by a jury. Trey Lovell, could there be anything more aggravating? That's a term of art to prove the death penalty. The state must prove special circumstances, special aggravating circumstances. According to what the state says, they can prove in a preliminary hearing, he, David Anthony Burke, stood by and watched this little girl bleed out in a kiddie pool. They got him busted buying on Amazon, for Pete's sake. Idiot. He buys it on Amazon. It can be traced to him. And just for fun, let me throw this in for you, Trey. He used a fake name. He used a different name to buy the kiddie pool. Look, I bought kiddie pools before. I didn't have to use a fake name for it. That's just another element of proof right there. Trey, what do you do with that? A kiddie pool.
Here's the thing, right? They might have done the chainsaw thing in the pool. They might have done it with something else besides a chainsaw. And the chainsaw might have been just to dismember, but they didn't do it. Or maybe they did other things outside of the pool and then put her in it. I'm not sure, right? It could be any number of those things. But regardless of what option you choose, Shadow and I say it is not good. It is one of the most horrific and vile things you'll ever see or hear about. All of these cases involving children are all bad. It's just that when it's this grisly, it makes you think even more so, right? I don't even know, for example, one of Ted Bundy's deaths was a 12-year-old girl, right? But as far as we know, I don't know how it happened. So you don't know the details. And we're starting to learn the details, and they're pretty dark. right? And it really makes you look at it differently.
Watches her, stands there and watches her as she dies. That's cold.
Well, listen, the death penalty is absolutely the most draconian, worst sentencing that we can have. So we're way ahead of ourselves.
This guy does not like the death penalty, by the way. Shadow is for the death penalty in this case. Tina, thank you very much for the super chat, Tina. Shadow and I appreciate that. Tina says, we appreciate you, Jared. She got us some soy-free Hootie snacks, free-ranging, soy-free Hootie snacks. Thank you very much, Tina. We appreciate your support. Hello there to Megan in the chat as well. Don't forget to smash the like, she says. Shadow says, amen. Hello there, Mike. Hello there, Philly. Yes, for sure, Prubu. Welcome, Autumn Elizabeth, as well. Yeah, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him, Songbits. We're going to go over that also. There's 3 videos. Law and Crime Network, this one, and Brian Etten. Yes, but as always, super chats, super stickers, and becoming a channel member or gifting channel memberships are a great way to support the channel. Likes are always free, and so is subscribing, and so is telling a friend, by the way. That is something I don't tell very many people. I don't say it enough, but I should say it more. Tell a friend. Tell a friend about the flock of black sheep. Tell them about Black Sheep Nation on your platforms, wherever you are, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, Threads, Blue Sky, X. I don't care where they are. You tell them. Tell them we got a great flock of black sheep over here. Bipartisan, nonpartisan black sheep, by the way.
We need to establish the basic elements here. We need to establish the evidence and ensure, what this guy did. We're at the very beginning. We can't be making judgments at this point. These are egregious facts, but there's a number of things that could have happened that would mitigate the situation on his end, maybe not on somebody else's. So we're way ahead of ourselves in terms of talking about the death penalty now.
Did you say mitigation? Did you say what? Was he a Cub Scout? What mitigation is there possibly out there that would reduce the fact that the state says in writing, this isn't a courthouse room or up and down the halls outside the judges.
Well, let's get clear about one thing as well. Regardless of actually how it was done, she was struck and penetrated with objects, and either her organs were punctured and that's what killed her, or she bled out. One or the other. And regardless of which one it is, she was, 13 or 14 at the time. And that's bad no matter how you spin it. Right? There is no spinning that in a good light.
Chamber. They put it in writing. They can prove he stood there and watched her, as Joe Scott Morgan says, exsanguinate, bleed out. He watched her die.
These are allegations. The evidence has just started, and we can't get ahead of ourselves. The death penalty is the most draconian sentencing we can have in California, and we've got to make sure that we meet the elements and we go forward. The death was horrendous, but we need to still tie him to it. There's still defenses they can have. So, at this point, we can't be judging it. We've seen one side of the evidence, that of the prosecution. The defense is just getting going. And I guarantee you, they will be poking holes in the evidence. They will have their alternative theory. We are just at the beginning.
Straight out.
And again, he's going to get the best defense that money can buy, whoever that is. I think he has a team of 3 lawyers in this case, right? But whoever it is, he's going to get the best. And it is probably for his life. Although in California, like this guy keeps on saying, there's a moratorium on the death penalty, and he says it's draconian. It's generally the school of thought in California, unless you're conservative. So it would be a lot. It would be a lot to be sentenced to death in California.
To sue.
And then to have it carried out too. He might get sentenced to death, but then it might not get carried out.
Susan Hendricks is joining us, investigative reporter and journalist, author of a bestseller, Down the Hill, My Descent into the Double Murders in Delphi. Susan Hendricks, just the portion about him buying. I mean, we've got Amazon orders out the yin-yang here, technical legal term, but he is busted buying a blue kiddie pool. And I know where the kiddie pool was used. It was hidden in his garage, his downstairs garage in that mansion that he was renting. Let's see a shot of the mansion. Maybe I can get a shot of the basement door. So the blue kiddie pool, the inflatable pool, was in the basement. My question is, isn't it true the state alleges he bought it on Amazon?
I know, absolutely. And that's why what you said, Nancy, that brief is so key, because to me, it gives us a timeline. It shows us what he bought. You mentioned it, with a fake name. And to me, it says he changed his mind a few times. Out of the gate, buying a shovel. Did he use that? But the kiddie pool is so horrendous. I wonder what his train of thought was, thinking, oh, I'm going to order this. And this is so she won't bleed everywhere. It's horrific. And that's what the DA said, Hochman. This is a parent's worst nightmare.
There is the shot, Susan. If you can look at your monitor, this is from our friend Harvey Levin over at TMZ. There is the garage door down the side, the bottom level, the back side of the home. Okay, I'm looking at everything you're saying. You know, another thing that did not escape me to Joseph Scott Morgan, she was identified by her dental records. Mm-hmm. You and I know what that means.
Yeah. And she's in such an advanced state of decomposition, Nancy, and that's critical. Actually, it was as a result, I think, probably to a great degree of the orthodontic work that she had done. Remember, this child had braces. All right. Let that sink in just for a second. And because of those braces and the work that had been done, the orthodontic people would have had extensive records on her teeth. And I'm assuming also that they ordered these up pretty quickly. You've got a dentist that's cooperating with the ME in order to get her tied down, get this ID tied down as quickly as possible. And it could be, I don't completely buy it. It could be that maybe from a sampling standpoint, the DNA was degraded. I'm not necessarily buying that, but they went with dental ID here.
So they had to go with dental ID because the other means of identification were not quite enough. That's because the body was in a bad state. So, and also, how long was it in the trunk for? A few months? A while? Enough to start decomposing?
And that's going to be critical because it's very distinctive. We all have very distinctive teeth, Nancy. And even if you've had orthodontia done, they're still unique to you because we not only look at the teeth where they're visible, we actually look at the root system on X-ray, and we can do examinations relative to that. The forensic odontologist can. And they turn this around apparently pretty quickly because they needed to verify that this was her because you knew that she was missing.
And that's why I think they did it, Joe Scott. I think they used dental records because they couldn't wait on DNA. They already knew of Celeste Rivas' existence. They knew she was missing, and they wanted to get that dental match. They wanted to get an ID on the body immediately, and dental records were the fastest way to go. You're absolutely right. Back out to you. Susan Hendricks is joining us. I was just taking a look at all of the things this idiot ordered on Amazon. Hey, does this name ring a bell? Brian Koberger ordered the murder weapon on Amazon. Let's take a look at Brian Koberger's K-bar knife that he ordered. That came back to haunt him. He can think about that tactical mistake as he's sitting behind bars for life without parole. Then we've got cult mom Lori Vallow. You know, technical legal phrase. She's another idiot. Let me go to Trey Lovell on this. Trey, it's when you're prosecuting a murder case, and in cult mom Lori Vallow's case, multiple murders, including her own children. But let me just throw in her now husband, the prophet, self-appointed prophet, Chad Daybell. What she saw in him, not sure. He was married, but before his wife died, i.e., was murdered, she, cult mom Lori Vallow, goes on Amazon and orders her wedding dress and a ring and her soon-to-be groom's outfit for a beach, B-E-A-C-H, wedding on Amazon before Tammy Daybell, the wife, is dead.
By the way, folks, please remember to like the video because likes are free. Spank that like button. Leave your DNA of choice on the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. That is also free to do. But super chats, super stickers, becoming a channel member, or gifting channel memberships are a great way to support the channel. They help me pay for Shadow the Night Owl's soy-free Hootie Snacks. And again, I go live 5 to 6 nights a week, every night this week, I think. And I talk about true crime, current events, and psychology. I have some interesting interviews coming up. Dr. George Simon, author of In Sheep's Clothing and Character Disturbance, that's on Tuesday. Marcella from Beyond the Bruise should be coming on next Thursday or Friday, if you're familiar with her from Instagram. Dr. Peter Salerno coming up. And we might have some specialists about female predators, female narcissists, and female borderlines. That should be interesting, if not controversial. That's what we have to look forward to. Also, thank you very much for all the support I've been getting so far. And if you're lurking, say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat here. We've got a great group of folks. Supportive, encouraging, eccentric. Great group.
So you've got, for instance, Koberger ordering the K-bar knife. You've got cult mom Lori Vallow. Does nobody, second verse, same as the first. And you've got d4vd, David Anthony Burke, ordering, I had to make a flow chart. He ordered a body bag. He ordered a heavy-duty laundry bag, a shovel. He ordered that from Home Depot. 2 chainsaws by Amazon and a home burn cage. There's more. I'm just throwing you the highlights. He ordered it all on Amazon. And then Ding Dong tried to use a fake name.
Listen, he's 18 years old. This guy doesn't know what he's doing. The last thing he's thinking about is
no, he's not.
He's or not 18 at the time.
Trey Lovell, he's 21. He was 20 at the time Celeste was murdered. And speaking of ages, they met, and that's certainly a euphemism. They met when
Everyone should welcome 101. He reminded me, or she reminded me, that they did subscribe to the channel. So we want to give them a flock of black sheep welcome, or welcome them as a black sheep nation, we'll say.
She was 11, and he gave her, according to these bombshell documents, a secret cell phone so they could text and send naughty pictures back and forth. 11, Trey Lovell. Back to Amazon orders.
Yeah. Yes, listen, he's a young guy. It doesn't have the benefit of having lived a while. This is probably something he's obviously never been faced with, and it may have affected the rest of his career and his life, and he acted accordingly. So we can't expect people like this to be dotting their I's and crossing the T's. And obviously, post-murder, assuming it's him, he took steps that he thought would try to hide it, but obviously in this day and age, you can't do it. So, that's the problem of youth when you try to commit, allegedly commit a murder like this.
I love the way you said he was young. Guess what, Lovell? She was younger. 11 years old when this whole sordid thing began. Back to the evidence. The orders on Amazon. Back to Susan Hendricks, investigative journalist, joining us from the field. Susan, what all did this idiot order on Amazon?
Yeah, I have a list here too, and you're right. A body bag, garbage bag, the burn cage, which I'd never heard of. As you said, Home Depot, the shovel, just on and on. Picturing him on his cell phone scrolling like we all do.
How big is that burn cage, though? Right? How big is that? I need a frame of reference.
Through Amazon. getting, I don't know, laundry detergent. No, things to get rid of a body. And you're right, just 11 years old when they first connected, 11, with braces. The parents got involved, said, no, you can't see her anymore. What did he do? He went to her middle school, paid a kid $1,000 and said, give her this phone. And they continue to communicate, a baby in middle school.
Hold on just a moment. Can you repeat that about d4vd paying one of her?
Despite being informed by law enforcement the victim was only 13, defendant continued to pursue her. Defendant drove to Lake Elsinore and paid a junior high school student in the victim's class $1,000 to give the victim a cell phone defendant purchased so they could stay in contact. Well, if true, it's definitely predatory behavior.
Classmates $1,000 so they would give Celeste a secret cell phone. What?
Yeah. Reported missing by her parents. She went back home in 2024. This was. So he drives about an hour and a half to her middle school, sees a young kid and says, here's $1,000. Give this phone to Celeste so they could keep communicating at this point. I'm picturing just a baby in braces in middle school, pays another little child $1,000, and therefore Celeste is able to get that phone.
Summertime expenses stacking up fast. For many, the only option is swiping that.
Remember, folks, to like the video while you're here because likes are free, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We got a late night version, double stream action tonight from Shadow and I. The first one was about clavicular. Not as popular with the folks, but we had a good like ratio in there at least and got some super chats that Shadow appreciated. Let's see how the rest of this one goes, by the way. And say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat. Great group of folks in here.
That credit card, leaving you trapped in a cycle of high interest debt. Psychologist specializing in evaluations in the criminal justice system. She's the author of Mainlining Philly, Survival, Hope, and Resisting Drug Addiction. The author of Aftershock, How Past Events Shake Up Your Life Today. She's the producer of Utter Nonsense, a documentary. And you can find her at drgeraldynutter.com. 11 years old. And he is just that visual that Susan Hendricks just conjured up of him scrolling through his phone, finding just the right kiddie pool to watch Celeste bleed out in their hidden basement lair, ordering all of these items, shovel, burn cage, kiddie pool, chainsaws, it goes on.
There is such a disconnect from...
Mike, thank you very much for the super chat, Mike. Shadow and I thank you. Shadow says hello to his cousins in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. I missed the first podcast tonight. I have a feeling, Mike, you wouldn't have liked it. It was about this guy named Clavicular that has some a lawsuit against him from another streamer. He's a wild dude. He's into looks maxing, if you know what that is. Might not have been your favorite. But thank you very much, Mike, for the super chat. We're going to buy some soy-free Hootie snacks. So Shadow says thank you.
Individuals like Mr. Burke recognizing that the person that was allegedly killed, Celeste, was a human being. There is such a huge detachment. I mean, when you look at the behavior, and I don't, age has nothing to do with this. I don't care if he was 18, 20.
So a 65-gallon incinerator is what Amazon says it was, Snoop. So I'm trying to think, how much can you... 65 gallons is pretty damn big. Right, so think about that. That's 65 gallons of milk. That's how much you can fill in this incinerator. That's a lot.
And that's even scarier. The fact that he was so young, allegedly committing these types of crimes. And it's just so disheartening. So when you look at this, I deal with homicide cases. I deal with extremely violent cases and do risk assessments all the time where somebody unfortunately loses their life. And I work with the perpetrators. And what I can tell you, that's so disturbing for me about this case is the sheer detachment of recognizing humanity. There was no empathy. There's no remorse. He is not looking at this little girl as a human being, let alone a little girl. So it's just, it's so upsetting to have to sit and to read and to take in all of this information. Again, when you're going and you're buying all of these different things, you're buying a burn cage. I mean, it just goes to speak to the depravity of it all, and how we're not dealing with somebody with one issue, which could be, a pattern of antisocial behavior.
So that's the burn cage. 65 gallons you can fit in there. They should really have the dimensions though, so you can see it, right? Like, okay, what is that? Like 4 feet, 3 feet, 4 feet? It's hard to say. But imagine whatever it is, you can fit 65 gallons of milk in there.
We're dealing with a lot of things, somebody that's attracted to children, violence, obsession with murder and death, and how you're going to hurt someone, watching someone bleed out. There's so much to this,
Right.
From a personality perspective. It's just devastating, Nancy.
You mentioned obsession with murder and death. Dr. Geraldine, I don't know if you've seen the visuals of his PR campaign where he is wearing bloody clothes, selling bloody clothes. Joining us now, Steve Fisher, special guest, missing persons private investigator, search and rescue specialist, the owner of Search Investigations. He was hired by the owner of that Hollywood Hills mansion where d4vd was renting at the time of the murders, and you are the first person to say the words fire cage or burn cage or home incinerator. What did you observe?
We found the burn cage at the house after the search warrant was executed. It was, going back now, you can see it in images from live streams and videos that he took at the house. He didn't seem to have a care in the world that it was there for the friends to see. We found the chainsaw, and several packages in the name of Victoria Mendez from Amazon, including the burn cage.
Is there a Victoria Mendez?
Not that we have found. It appears just to be an alias he was using.
To Steve Fisher, before I get back to what we learned about her body, specifically why 2 of her fingers were cut off. You know what? Let me just go to Joe Scott right now. Joe Scott Morgan, remember a couple of nights ago that you and I were talking about 2 of her fingers on her left hand were missing, right? Some of the fingers were gone. And why? And they were never found. Never found. The rest of her body found in 2 separate bags, but her fingers were gone. They were amputated. Did you know that one of those fingers was the one she had his, d4vd's, name tattooed on the finger?
Yeah, I have since found that out, but I got to tell you, it's not surprising because that's a specific identifier that could be tied back to her as a person, and she was a person, Nancy, and he's wanting to get rid of that. And I've had cases like this before where we've had victims that are in an advanced state of decomposition. They've been dumped. I've had hands cut off, heads cut off, those sorts of things. And so, it's a feeble attempt, particularly in the face of modern forensic science, to try to keep these people unidentified, because it's always been my contention in any death investigation, Nancy, if you can determine who the person is, it's like the proverbial sweater that mom tells you not to pull the string on. You pull that string and this whole thing comes unraveled relative to it pointing back to this individual, Nancy.
Hi, guys. Nancy Grace here. Please join us on crime. I deal in forensics and probative value evidence. But look at this. Look, don't take the photo down. This finger was amputated because it divulged the identity of the victim. But wait, keep looking. This is her ring finger, and she is wearing an engagement ring, a traditional engagement ring. This little girl, the whole argument, the whole thing blew up when she, Celeste, got angry that d4vd would not quit sleeping with other people. It hurt her feelings. She's a little girl. She's 13. She said he promised her a future. marriage, children, a life together. And she's even wearing a faux engagement ring on.
So, folks, how is my sound on my end? Is my sound good, or is it on Patty's end that the sound is low?
Her ring finger with the tattoo on it, dreaming that she was going to be Mrs. David Anthony Burke. That breaks my heart. And her little broken heart that he would not quit dating other women led to her murder because she threatened to reveal their relationship. He was on the verge. Let me go to Steve Fisher on this because he's made an incredible timeline. He was on the verge of dropping an album and launching a world tour. Celeste could have ruined the whole thing. He could either marry her or kill her.
Yeah, it's true. And these other women were minors that he was that she was upset about, and I'm in touch with them, and it's just really sad. This is grooming to the fullest extent. I'll tell you one other thing that somebody called me that now that it's comfortable that since David's been arrested, and they told me that Celeste had been trying to get the ring back to David, and he wouldn't take it. She was like trying to cut free from this guy. Of course, she's being groomed, so she still got this thing, where she's having trouble doing it, but she wanted to break free from him, and he would not take the ring back.
See, what Celeste needed was an adult that she could be honest with. And it sounds like she didn't think she can be honest with her parents. And that is one of the big things, right? Once you can't be honest with your parents, that's a big step in the wrong direction. And it happens a lot. And especially when there's addictions and mental health involved, you feel like you can't be honest with them anymore because your parents, if they love and care about you, they want you to stop doing drugs, right? But if that's the only thing that gives you enjoyment, you don't want to stop doing drugs. And so it becomes a battle. And your parents are more like the cops, and you're like a bad guy trying to avoid the cops. But whether you're a man or a girl, or a boy or a girl, I should say, you need someone you can be truthful with. And that's what Celeste needed. Now, what she also probably knew, though, was if she was truthful with a mental health professional, they would have had a duty to protect. So if Celeste says, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm 13 and I'm sleeping with 19-year-old or 18-year-old d4vd, that would qualify as, yeah, there's a duty to protect. So she might have known that. But other adults would have needed to step in. It's like, what? You're pregnant? What? You're engaged to be married? What? Like, you're 13. It's like, dude, girl, like, get a grip. Now, d4vd is way worse. Don't get me wrong, right? But I think people in her life also failed her. Like, there needed to be people there to kind of know what was going on with her. But sounds like they didn't know. And she just did her own thing. And left to her own devices, she got groomed by a predator. It's not her fault. It's d4vd's fault, to be very clear. I just wish there was someone in her life that would have been able to step in. And someone that, like the cool aunt. That's what she needed, right? Celeste needed a quote-unquote, the cool aunt to be open and honest with. That's what she needed.
Would not let her go.
Steve Fisher, you have exclusive video of d4vd's Tesla being moved around in the neighborhood, and you are allowing us to show it. I want to thank you for that. Let's see Steve Fisher's video. What am I saying, Steve?
So this is July 29th, which is the last day they're actually in Hollywood because they're leaving on his tour, on the Wither tour, is beginning that evening in Santa Barbara. And this is the car being moved from the house. The house is right around where the car starts. It's right around that corner.
What is this, like the hedgerows of France?
There, and it's coming down to where it wraps around to Bluebird. And this is somebody moving the car. I think it's around 10:30 in the morning. I might be off by an hour or so there. But they have the window down. The car's super dirty. You can tell it hasn't been moved in an extremely long time. They did the windshield wipers once or twice to get rid of it. And it's a lighter skinned, person with wearing red sleeves and
Tim makes a good point. The parents can't be cleared by anyone but a DA. That's Celeste's parents now. And the same with d4vd's parents, for that matter, as well, wherever the hell they were. But again, I don't know, like Celeste's parents, I don't know if there should be any, I don't know enough to say there should be any charges against them. I just wish there was someone there. As far as d4vd's parents, I have no idea where the hell they were. It sounds like they were just not even there. It sounds like, oh, he's wealthy enough and he's doing his own thing, probably living on his own, and they just let him go. And they probably didn't have much of an idea. There might have been clues. But they certainly didn't appear to follow through on any of those gut feelings if they had them, and they might not have had them.
Red type of jersey. So
sounds like Neo, one of his best friends, who has not been charged, who appeared at the grand jury, who is not a person of interest. Steve Fisher, what is the date of that video we're showing right now?
July 29th, 2025. And this is the date. This is the last.
You're saying the windows were rolled down and it's coming out of d4vd's mansion. Do you believe that Celeste her body was already in the front trunk?
Absolutely. Yes.
Why?
Because they leave. This is the last day that the car is driven. They leave that evening, early in the evening, late afternoon, on a tour bus for the first leg of the tour, which starts in Santa Barbara, and ironically in San Francisco. And so this is it. They leave and they're not back until the search warrant. After the search warrant is executed. Now, somebody is back, not David, but somebody is in that house the day before the search warrant is executed. And we don't know, we haven't narrowed down the two people, but we don't know exactly who. But David and is out on tour and doesn't come back before she's found.
What an idiot. All the digital evidence, ordering from Amazon, Postmates, Uber, where he lured her, according to these documents. Isn't that true, Susan Hendricks, that the night we believe she was murdered?
Look at the timeline here. Night of Celeste murder timeline. So April 23rd, 2025, 8:40 p.m., d4vd orders Uber for Celeste. And from this moment forward, d4vd should stand for disgraceful, vile, degenerate. That's what it should stand for now on. I decree it. Shadow and I decree it. 10:10 p.m. Celeste arrives at disgraceful, vile, degenerate's home. 10:30 p.m. disgraceful, vile, degenerate texts, "Where are you?" 11:30 p.m. disgraceful, vile, degenerate drives away from home.
Murdered. d4vd orders an Uber for her. She arrives at his home and she's never seen again.
Yeah, using everything that we may use every day, as you said, Amazon and Uber, having her delivered to his home, knowing exactly what he was going to do. And it's gut-wrenching to think, just a baby, 11, as we mentioned, her body was discovered, I learned, September 8th, and her birthday, she would have turned 15 September 7th. He threw her away like trash. How long was she in that car? It's just excruciating to think about.
You stated he threw her away like trash after he ordered her up like a pizza delivery, like he's ordering Chinese. He just orders an Uber. She comes over. That night, we believe, he killed her, according to these bombshell documents. And out to you, Joseph Scott Morgan, he goes to the trouble of ordering a blue inflatable kiddie pool to use so she won't bleed on his floor. But guess what? He didn't get rid of all the blood, did he?
No, I think that it's probably an empirical impossibility. You know why? Because she was rendered, according to what they're saying, Nancy, and I've worked cases, and they are some of the most brutal cases that you can encounter from a rendering standpoint. This is critical in the sense that, just let me give you one quick stat. A chip actually moves at anywhere from 12,000 at the top end to 15,000 RPM.
After placing her body into the blue inflatable pool to prevent her blood from spilling onto his garage floor, defendant used a chainsaw and perhaps other tools to cut off her limbs. Small blue plastic fragments were found embedded in the victim's remains. Hideous.
That's revolutions per minute. What the ME is saying relative to the report, they're talking about how the edges are clean. And I had a lot of questions about this when I read the autopsy report, thinking about, well, that's probably reasons you're seeing this embedded plastic on.
A kiddie pool is just what it sounds like, a pool for kids, like one of those inflatable pools. That is different than CSA. That was found on his phone. That's a different thing.
On the surface of these injuries. And one more thing here. They alleged that he had done this in the garage. Now, I don't know how thoroughly they were able to clean up, but they had to have recovered something. And Nancy, he himself, whoever the perpetrator was, would have absolutely been covered in all of this debris off of her body.
Well, look at page 6, Joe Scott. Page 6. Inside the garage, detectives discovered evidence consistent with what happened to the victim's body, the rendering in the inflatable pool. They find biological samples positive for blood collected in the garage. DNA confirms it matches victim Celeste. So I don't care how much he hosed out the garage.
No.
His garden hose is no match for DNA collection, especially with the way that she was killed, the blood that is flying around, hitting everywhere in that garage. Also, there's a ton of digital evidence that we're here.
I mean, honestly, have you ever seen Scarface? Think the scene in Scarface where the Colombians, they do that. They dismember one of Tony Montana's friends in the bathtub there. And they're about to do it to Tony Montana too. But then Manny comes in there and saves the day. And they kill the Colombians. But that's a very famous scene there in the movie Scarface. Any of you that have seen Scarface in the chat?
Bring about Susan Hendricks. What else jumps out at you tonight out of this document that we've just obtained?
That less than 24 hours later, after allegedly murdering her, he goes to the opening of his album at the 100 Thieves Cash App compound. He's out there partying. And as I mentioned, the motive, they were arguing on the 22nd. 23rd comes around, gets the Uber, brings her to his house. He knows what he's doing, kills her, acts like nothing happens, and all he thinks about is getting rid of her. That's it. And himself. Goes to a launch
and then
party.
Goes and parties. Look at that, Steve Fisher. We're showing a shot of the party you first told us about, Steve. These are your photos. What happened?
Somehow he is within 24 hours, out celebrating it. And what I don't understand, and maybe Joseph can speak more to this, can you even clean the scene up within this amount of time before he's at this party to the point where, LAPD, when they came out and did that search warrant, they didn't turn it into a major crime scene. They weren't in Tevic suits after they found some, they were only there a few hours. So I'm confused how he was able to clean it so well by himself and then have a party the next night that started at 9 p.m., not super late. So I still have a lot of questions after this affidavit or after.
I've got a question about how he was out there partying after he just murdered and rendered a little girl, and he's partying. I mean, career before all. There was no way in HELL he was going to let a little 13-year-old girl destroy his world tour and his album drop. Oh, no, nothing will get in the way of that. Well, how does life without parole or the California death penalty feel now, David Anthony Burt? You can think about that as you await trial. You're on cross-examination. Who is our next sponsor? Well, here is a probative clue. Meow. Small.
What was the odds on Nancy Grace doing a meow in the video? Sort of like in Super Troopers, where they do the bet, how many meows can you do in the traffic stop? But that's, of course, Nancy Grace. Everyone knows Nancy Grace. Make sure you support Nancy Grace's work. She's a friend of the channel. Make sure you like the video while you're out there too, because likes are free. So spank that like button. Leave your DNA of choice in the like button. Throw Shadow a like vest the way Brian Hooker should have sent one to Lynette Hooker. And subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And as always, super chats, super stickers, becoming a channel member or gifting channel memberships. Great way to support the channel. And with that, I buy soy-free Hootie snacks for Shadow the Night Owl.
Obviously waiting to see. Hey guys, thanks so much for checking out my show. I really appreciate it. Please click to subscribe. Really appreciate all the support. I've been covering the David case for a while. We were all obviously waiting to see when and if he was going to be arrested. Knew that the details were going to be horrifying just based on Celeste Rivas Hernandez being found in the trunk of the Tesla. But these new court documents, and I'm going to go through them in this episode, are just next level horrifying. Beyond sick and twisted. What singer David is accused of doing to this underage teenager, it's beyond even what I could have imagined. And I think it's important to go through it if you're following the case, just to sort of wrap your mind around how terrible it is. So I'm going to get into it in this episode. I'm going to go through all of the new allegations, all of the details. It's kind of a warning. I mean, some of it it's terrible. It's really terrible. And they get into detail in the new court docs. So I'm gonna dig in this episode of Brian Enton Investigates. All right, hey guys.
So Poo Boo asks, how do we stop these horrors? And that's the thing. There's no way to completely stop them. You can pay attention. All anyone can do is pay attention to the people around them. Pay attention to your loved ones. Be mindful of when there's disconnection and you think they're no longer being honest with you if you're a parent. I've mentored a lot of parents that have had to deal with not this kind of thing, but addictions, mental health stuff, and it's tough. It is tough. And I've mentored parents that have had to deal with narcissistic kids. And of course, I've mentored the kids that have had to deal with narcissistic parents. Well, they're adult kids now. But you pay attention. That's what you do. And all anyone can do is work within their circle of influence and pay attention to what's around them. Because as Dr. Salerno would tell you, the random genetic variation, these psychopathic and narcissistic traits, they're not going anywhere. They're here. They're here. They're not going anywhere. And they get rewarded. I mean, let's face it. We talked about this in the clavicular video. Psychopathic and narcissistic traits, they get rewarded now. So they're rewarded by culture. So they're not going anywhere. And even if they weren't rewarded, they wouldn't be going anywhere either. Because it's just going to pop up. You can't completely eradicate it.
So singer David Burke, it's spelled d4vd. That's really what he went by for his music career. He was getting popular. He had a budding music career, ton of followers on social media.
So my opinion about d4vd, disgusting, vile, degenerate, is he's a sexual sadist. That's my unofficial opinion on him. That makes him a psychopath, is what that makes him. He's a sexual sadist.
Was about to go out on tour, but behind the scenes, if the evidence is true, if all of these allegations turn out to be true, he was a sick and twisted psychopath. He really was. He's been charged with killing 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez, having a sexual relationship with the child for years, first meeting her when she was 11 years old. And then investigators say he had to silence her by killing her before she outed him for having this relationship with someone underage and ruined his career. So I'm going to go through all of these new court documents. And again, some of the details are difficult to hear, but you know, I think it's important to understand what he is accused of and what poor Celeste Rivas Hernandez went through. So bear with me. This is the new preliminary hearing evidence that just came out. You guys remember Celeste Rivas Hernandez was found in the back of David's Tesla. And according to this document, surveillance video and other evidence confirmed defendant was the last person to drive the vehicle. This was back on July 29th, 2025, before he left Los Angeles on a concert tour. LAPD detectives opened the Tesla's front storage compartment and observed a black cadaver bag covered in insects. Inside the bag, they discovered a severely decomposed head and torso. A plastic garbage bag beneath the black cadaver bag contained the dismembered arms and legs. However, the victim's ring and pinky fingers on her left hand had been amputated and were not found in the Tesla. So they did not find her ring.
So the ring and pinky finger were amputated. And as someone mentioned in the chat before, what do you want to bet? He kept them as souvenirs. What do you want to bet? That's what happened. Because people that are about to be serial killers, as it seems like this guy would have been, honestly, if you're a sexual sadist and you're obsessed with death, that's the progression. There's a very good episode of Criminal Minds back when Gideon was on the show. And there's an interesting storyline in there where there's a guy that basically he knows that he gets aroused from violence, and he basically turns himself in because he doesn't want to do those things. It's actually a very interesting episode. That kind of thing probably wouldn't happen in real life, like turning yourself in before you do it. But it did happen with that tall guy, Edward Kemper. He did turn himself in, but after he did it, after he killed his mother and her friend and others. Edward Kemper is actually in my favorite book on borderline, Understanding the Borderline Mother by Christine Ann Lawson. And she has a good little section about Edward Kemper's mother in there because she says his mother had BPD. And when questioned about why Edward Kemper did it, he said, "I was just tired of all the hate." And he did some vile things to the body after he did this. And some of it was pretty symbolic because she would abuse him, apparently, viciously. And he had enough. Now, it's not an excuse for what he did, but that's what Christine Ann Lawson was saying in the book.
And pinky fingers. And the reason for that I'm going to get to in a second. So it goes on to say, pursuant to their investigation, LAPD robbery homicide detectives determined the victim and defendant met in January 2022 when she was 11 years old. 11 years old. They began a sexual relationship in November 2023 when the victim was just 13 years old and defendant was 18. Detectives learned the victim had been reported missing to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department by her family. They live in Lake Elsinore, February and April 2024. They telephonically contacted the defendant in February of 2024 after they identified a phone number in the victim's phone that belonged to him. So she's reported missing. They start trying to contact David to figure out where she is. Despite being informed by law enforcement the victim was only 13, defendant continued to pursue her. After the victim returned home in February 2024, her parents took her cell phone away. Defendant drove to Lake Elsinore and paid a junior high school student in the victim's class $1,000 to give the victim a cell phone defendant purchased so they could stay in contact. So he paid one of her classmates $1,000, according to investigators, so that she could get another phone to stay in touch with him after her parents took away her phone. Throughout 2024, the victim spent a significant amount of time with defendant, including summer weekends at his home in the Hollywood Hills and traveling with him to Las Vegas, London, and Texas to meet his family. So he has this underage girl traveling with him all over the world. How they got away with that, I don't know. Text exchanges between the victim and defendant contain references to sex, pregnancy, abortion, and use of the Plan B emergency contraceptive. Wow. There are also explicit photographs documenting and corroborating their sexual relationship. In November 2024, defendant and the victim broke up. Although they continued to communicate, the text messages suggest they also continued to have sexual relations. Remember.
So again, she had threatened at a point to expose their relationship, and that caused her some problems because, you know, it's d4vd's fault, right? He's the one that put himself in that position, and then he did what he did because she threatened to do it. So the whole thing's just horrific.
This is a young girl. April 23rd, 2025 is likely the date of the victim's death and when all her cell activity ceased. The night prior, April 22nd, 2025, defendant and the victim engaged in a lengthy argument described in detail in their text messages. The messages reveal the victim's jealousy over defendant's relationship with other women, as defendant led her to believe they had a future together. She became extremely upset and threatened to disclose damaging information about her relationship with the defendant to end his career and destroy his life. Knowing he had to silence the victim before she ruined his music career, as she had threatened, very soon after her arrival at his home, defendant stabbed the victim to death multiple times and stood by while she bled out. So according to this, she threatened to come forward with their relationship. David killed her, stabbed her multiple times, and then stood there while she bled out. Then after that, according to investigators, he drove away from his home as he texted and called the victim's home, drove away from his home as he called and texted Celeste asking where she was. So they're alleging that even though he just killed her, then he started texting her phone to throw investigators off when they would later investigate her disappearance to try to make it seem like, oh, he was also texting her and she wasn't responding. Meanwhile, they say he had just killed her. It gets worse. It gets worse. Defendant subsequently purchased tools to carry out his plot to dismember and dispose of victim's body. On April 24, 2025, defendant ordered a shovel from Home Depot that was delivered to his home from Postmates. On May 1st, 2025, defendant ordered and subsequently Amazon delivered 2 chainsaws to his home. On May 5th, 2025, defendant ordered and Amazon subsequently delivered a body bag, heavy-duty laundry bags, and a blue inflatable pool to his home. He made these purchases under the fake name Victor Mendez. Amazon also delivered a burn cage to his home under the same fake name.
That's the burn cage we went over on the Nancy Grace show, the 65-gallon burn cage. There's a lot of gallons of milk in there, right?
Moreover, defendant took horrifying measures to destroy and discard of the victim's body after placing her body into the blue inflatable pool to prevent her blood from spilling onto his garage floor. And again, this stuff is difficult to read. Defendant used a chainsaw and perhaps other tools to cut off her limbs. In order to distance himself from the victim, he amputated her left ring and pinky fingers because her ring finger contained a tattoo of his name. So he cut off her pinky fingers and amputated her left ring. Her fingers have still not been recovered. Defendant then placed her head and torso into the cadaver bag he purchased. He placed her limbs into a garbage bag, which he deposited into his front trunk, laying the cadaver bag on top. For several weeks or possibly months, defendant left the victim's body to decompose inside of his Tesla. So not only is he accused of killing Celeste,
This is Brian's spot here. He's been in this spot before. I remember the graffiti in the background there and the railroad tracks. But I guess this is his Arizona spot.
Accused of literally dismembering her in his garage. It's awful. It's beyond comprehension. I want to talk to Lauren Conlon now, reporter who's been covering this case since the very beginning, about just some of these sick and twisted details and what comes next.
So Shadow wants me to remind you all to like the video, spank that like button, leave your DNA of choice on the like button. Shadow thinks this woman's pretty cute here too, he says. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And as always, super chats, super stickers, becoming a channel member, or gifting channel memberships. Great way to support the channel. They help me pay for soy-free hoodie snacks for Shadow. And they also give you the memberships. They give you access to the members-only live streams. Say hello to the flock of black sheep here in the live chat, Black Sheep Nation. And me, personally, I go live almost every night at a little bit after 10 p.m. Eastern to talk about true crime, current events, and psychology. Talk a lot about narcissism and toxic relationships on the channel too. I interview a lot of professionals and other interesting people as well. The archives go back years, so there's tons of things to be checking out here. The last several months, I've been doing more true crime and current events. Before that, more mental health and psychology stuff. And of course, practicing radical self-respect. Can't forget that.
Lauren, first of all, do you know there's a lot I'm reading about something with the death certificate, and it being and the possibility that it was changed and she may have been pregnant. Is there any truth to that?
I mean, this is a TMZ report, and their reporting has been, I want to say the reporting has been very good on this case, although Harvey has made some interesting speculations before that I don't necessarily agree with. They weren't exactly right about the component of Celeste possibly being frozen, although I think that you might need additional testing from what I was told by Joseph Scott Morgan during the autopsy process to actually find that out. So, we learned pretty soon after that rumor kind of went viral. I believe it was either the LAPD or somebody official kind of put a stop to it. I think I'd have to go back and check, but I saw those rumors on Reddit. I don't know about you, but obviously, Reddit sleuths, they've been on top of this case. They've been right about a lot of stuff, but it's tough to prove.
Nothing
at
confirmed.
That point.
Okay. So you don't know anything about the death certificate being changed, whether that's true or not.
It's just, I only know what TMZ has reported. I did reach out to the medical examiner's office as well to see if they knew anything. I didn't hear back from the PIO, but I did it like very, very shortly ago.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So I've been following you. I mean, and I was just telling you before we came on, you do an amazing job, and you've been all over this case for a long time. And I kind of was into it, and then I dipped out because I got so distracted with Nancy Guthrie. But this, these court papers, I read through them all. To me, it was, I knew it was going to be bad, but it was actually worse than I expected. Did you expect all of this?
No, I didn't, Brian. And I think, you say you took a step back, but really, Brian, there was nothing really going on for a long time. So it's not really like you missed much. But I think because the arrest took so long, I was just thinking to myself, well, I don't know what the police are going off of, especially because, we knew there was a grand jury being convened and still it didn't result in any type of indictment. And then boom, we've got this arrest and it's on probable cause. And most of us are going, okay, well, what's the evidence going to be? And DA Hochman said, yeah, we obviously didn't have a witness here. We didn't have anything on surveillance footage or on camera. So we had to basically piece this together through forensics and through iCloud and cell phone data. And so you're like, okay, got it. But this was insane. I mean, they told us every single piece of the story, I would say vividly, except for, I guess, the act of the killing, I would say. I mean, they say he stabbed her with a sharp force instrument, right? About 20 minutes or within 20 minutes of her arriving at his Hollywood Hills home. we don't know exactly what happened, if there was a confrontation between the two of them, but it's terrible. And I think, for me, it was tough reading all of the stuff about the Plan B as well. I mean, obviously everything about, the chainsaws and the burn cage incinerator, which, Steve Fisher actually saw in the garage because he was working for the homeowner. But to know that there was photos and videos of David allegedly with this child in sexually explicit positions, and it's awful. I mean, it's worse than I thought. And that, again, is an understatement. I just feel cliche saying that, but I don't know how else to say it. It's diabolical.
Yeah, I just kept thinking about how young she was. It would be terrible no matter how old the woman was, but she was a child. And the fact that they met when she was 11,
I know.
Were there any signs that you know of that with David, that has he been violent in the past? I mean, if all of these allegations are true, and I said almost like a psychopath evil. I mean, this is next level. I mean, chopping someone up, chains.
I mean, it's the dark stuff, right? I mean, to me, he gets pleasure from people's pain. That's the sexual sadistic part. That's a bad combo, Jack. And then he was very controlling. I mean, and also his music career, he's probably getting a lot of narcissistic supply from that, the attention, admiration, etc. Thought it was special. Rules didn't apply to him. Entitled, you name it. And he got a lot of stuff going on.
This is really bad.
Brian, I mean, we know what we've seen in his videos. And I think a lot of the David defenders throughout all of this were like, well, that's his persona. That's what he does. The romantic homicide, the caskets, the blood, this and that. Say what you want, fine. I stumbled across a TikTok that he had. He's got like 5 different TikToks. And I think I even wrote a story about this because I was so shocked. But it was him just reciting Bible verses and talking about being a good Christian and what it means and trying to get closer to God. So I am just trying to wrap my head around all of this at this point, because it's like you've got this side of David, then you've got this, homicidal guy.
Well, what do you think that is? That's the image, right? He wants to also have the image of that a little bit, even though he has the image of talking about death all the time in his songs as well. But it's image management, impression management, definitely a thing. Also, folks, if you're lurking, make sure you've liked the video and make sure you're subscribed. There might be people watching that are not subscribed. And say hello to the flock of black sheep in the live chat here.
In these music videos, and you hear these lyrics, and you hear some of these interviews that he does. There was one where he said, "I killed her in the back of my mind." That was like a lyric that he had, I guess, and he's kind of talking about this in an interview, and then it really starts to make you think. But again, throughout the course of this investigation, all of the David defenders have said that's just his persona. That's not really him. Okay, again, I know it's alleged, but this would paint a different picture. And I just, I had said this before. I was surprised to see that there was no co-conspirators. I know that this is not over. It just seemed like a big job for this 125-pound kid. And obviously he's not a kid, but it's just like a punk, I guess is the right word. It's strange. And I do feel like clearly, we are going to learn a lot more details, but they made a point in this document to say, about the smell coming from his Tesla, that he lied to his friends and he lied to everyone around him. And maybe that was sort of the district attorney's way of being.
I bet you a lot of the people around him were like, I'm not going to be the snitch. That's a thing. Like, this, as ridiculous as it sounds to some people, that is a thing. I'm not going to be the snitch. I'm not going to be the one that turns him in. And especially when you're younger, like, that's a thing. That's a thing, especially in certain subsectors. It's absolutely a thing.
Like back up off everybody. You know, I mean, I don't know, but just a thought.
Is it? Yeah.
Especially if you're in a gang, if you're in the hood or like a biker gang or whatever gang you're thinking about, like being a snitch is like one of the last things you would ever do. Now, an exception would be someone that messes with little kids, right? Depending, right? So they would actually take great pleasure in doing something to someone like that. And there's an episode of The Sopranos about it too, by the way, where he actually doesn't do it, but it's Meadows' soccer coach is messing with one of the players on the team. And but he doesn't do anything. And he gets drunk instead, and the guy just gets arrested. But anyway, that's just an aside.
I mean, it's a good point. Is it possible he could have, even if no one helped him, did he not tell anyone? Did no one know about this?
I mean, look, you and I both know it, like human behavior, you kind of have to tell someone, one person, you know, whether it's your therapist, whether it's your best friend, I don't know. I mean, there is a reason his family fought so hard not to subpoena or not to testify in front of the grand jury when they were subpoenaed. I have never seen anything like that, fighting that hard to travel as an out-of-state witness. So, you know, I think going back, David knew this arrest was imminent. His family clearly knew it was coming as well. I mean, you don't transfer your homes to your mother's name unless you think you're going to lose everything. So, I mean, I think I also said this the other day, or maybe it was last night, just Santa Barbara, which TMZ was also right about. And also when TMZ brought up Santa Barbara, LAPD felt the need to kind of address this. I don't know if you remember, but that was one of their very few formal statements. And what gets me is like, you made how many trips to Santa Barbara to dispose of evidence, but not the body? And I'm apologize by saying the body. I'm not trying to sound crass or whatever. I'm just trying to say this in an objective way, but yeah, like how many trips are you making out there to get rid of evidence, but like you're leaving this child in your car? Like it doesn't make sense to me. Like I understand he's stupid, but how this defies a level of stupidity.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. He went through all that trouble, and the details are hard to talk about, but in terms of essentially cutting her up and removing certain body parts, but then just left the body in the trunk. Like obviously at some point, something was going to happen there. Someone was going to smell something. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like it is interesting that that he didn't go bury the body somewhere or something. I mean, thankfully he didn't. But
right. Well, and you know, something else I was asking myself is when the police did this search in his Hollywood Hills home, and this was way back in September of 2025. In the garage where they found this inflatable pool, they found linear cut marks like left over in the pool, and they found her DNA. So I keep thinking, I mean, I guess that wasn't enough to arrest him then, because possibly, you know, they wouldn't have been able to get a criminal complaint filed based on that. I can't figure it out. I really can't figure it out. I also have to think that at that point, they did have a lot of phone records because he did have some devices in the house. He had computers. They can get things off of his iCloud account. And they also had Celeste's phone records from when she first went missing back in February 2024. That's how they first got in touch with him, because they saw his name in her phone. And he was like, what? No, I didn't know she was a minor. I only met her once. Okay. And then 2 days later, she shows back up. So I am really curious here. I guess they really were just trying to build this rock solid case. However, I do think that the defense is going to have a really good time with certain things about the case. And again, objectively speaking, I think that her autopsy was completed in September. They did not rule her death a homicide. They know until December. So, you know, tox reports do take time. I'm certain they probably expedited this one just based on everything that we know. And some of the tox reporting was inconclusive. So I just have a feeling that his lawyers are going to say something like, well, it was inconclusive and positive for methamphetamine and MDMA, and she had alcohol in her system, and her body was so badly decomposed that David just, she overdosed and he freaked out. And then I'm sorry, if I'm a juror, that's not going to fly. And I don't even think a judge.
I don't even know what kind of defense he's even going to try to pull on this. What kind of defense can he even do? Oh, it wasn't me that did it. What else? I mean, there's a lot of evidence pointing in his direction. So who is he going to say did it? Who are they going to say did it if not him? One of his friends? He throw one of his friends under the bus? Wouldn't surprise me. Maybe someone else in his group? I don't know. But what do you think? What do you think his defense is going to be?
Would possibly allow that defense to come in. But I feel like that is where they would sort of go with this. Because I'm sorry, like, you don't freak out and then get a chainsaw. Like that's the opposite of freaking out to me.
Yeah.
But
and everything they can prove he bought. I mean, from Home Depot, from Amazon. Like, how's he going to explain the pool? I mean,
well, I think what he would say is, oh yeah, I freaked out. And again, I say this based on Blair Burke's, one of her first statements, and saying he is not responsible for her death. Okay, got it. But
now is the wording, right? You pay attention to the wording, not responsible, which means who was responsible or what was responsible. Are they going to try to blame drugs? Maybe.
Again, like I don't even know if a judge would allow this to come.
But even so, even if it was an OD, just dismembering and any of these other things, it's just not going to fly. It's not going to fly.
And just based on inconclusive tox reports, or because a body was so badly decomposed, because
but they're saying she was stabbed, right? I mean,
she was stabbed before. Yeah.
So I mean, who stabbed her then?
Well, I think so. What somebody explained to me.
I don't think they even said it was a knife. They said it was an object that might have been a knife. I think that's what we heard so far, right, chat?
Because I was actually discussing this in court today. We were having an argument, and they're like, no, that was him. And they're talking if he had a defense, by the way. This is not like, that was his way of trying to start the dismemberment.
I see. So
I don't buy that.
So a defense could be that she died from something else.
Right.
He freaked out, and those stab wounds were him. You're right. But I mean, but still,
I know.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I get where you're going. I mean, if they're going to come up with some kind of defense.
Well, they've got to come up with something, right? Because everybody is entitled to a defense. And again, I want everyone to know this is not me running a cover for David. I hate when that comes up, because literally nobody wants justice for this little girl more than I do. I do have questions about the adults involved too, just knowing that she traveled to London with him.
London. Yeah, that shocked me. And like, how does this underage girl, travel the world with this guy and no one's freaking out about it?
Yeah, I definitely don't want to come down on the family without knowing all of the details. I know they are hurting. Nobody should have to deal with what they are dealing with, because I would not wish this on anyone. But it's not just her parents I'm wondering about. Again, it's everybody in David's circle, I guess. And I know they're not David's babysitters, but there comes a point where you can't just look the other way. You can't, because this is all.
And again, that could be an interesting thing, right? Depending on where you are. What was that rule where we went over? I think it was in South Carolina. There's the rule of guilty for one person is guilty for all. Imagine if that was the case in this case. So anyone in d4vd's circle could be charged with the crime if they were there. And that kind of thing absolutely does happen. There are people that, say there's 4 people robbing a home. One person's the getaway driver. Well, the 3 people that go in, they kill someone. All 4 people, including the driver, are charged with murder. And there's been some death penalty cases where the driver has gotten the death penalty because of what other people have done inside the house. Pretty crazy, right?
Going to fall back on the adults in charge, right? And again, David's parents. I mean, I actually reached out to the family attorney today, the Burke family attorney, and I'm like, do they have a statement based on the fact that Celeste reportedly, per the DA, spent time with the family in multiple cities? I mean, I don't know. Did they tell the family that she was 18? Who knows? And this seems to be the way he meets a lot of these younger people, is through Discord, through Fortnite, Snapchat. And I actually did some reporting on when David was visiting high schools and certain schools that were actually like 6th grade through 12th grade. I called a bunch of these schools after seeing his videos on YouTube. So David was essentially loitering outside of these high schools, offering concert tickets. He's having them scan, QR codes. It looked like they're exchanging information, whatever. So I called 3 of the schools, and one of the principals, and by the way, all the schools were like, no, we did not sanction this. And he actually wasn't technically on the property. He was just bordering it, which was clearly purposeful. But one of the principals, I think it was a school in Pennsylvania, if I'm recalling correctly, she was like, oh no, I only remember hearing about this because kids were talking about it. They got some kind of alert on social media. They were all excited, and we did not condone any of this. And I was like, that's crazy, because these are 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds. He's 18, 19 at the time. And if that's my kid, I'm going to want to know if a wealthy singer who is on the verge of becoming very famous is contacting my kids and offering them things. And, I got a lot of crap for that, Brian, some of those reports. Everybody's like, you're being so picky. He was still a teenager himself. And I'm like, yeah, but 18
So
is
you're
18.
telling me he went to schools to promote his music, like high school?
He was giving tickets away. Like SZA, when he was opening for SZA, he was giving tickets away. And all these kids are crowding around him. They're scanning the QR code. They're doing the scavenger hunt. And like I said, you can see footage of him just talking to kids. And I mean, it was disturbing, but that was his playground, allegedly, in my opinion. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any sense of how if this was premeditated? I mean, do you think they got into this fight? She threatened to expose everyone to that she's young and end his career. And do you think he just snapped in the moment, or do you think he was planning to do this? Do we know?
I mean, I think the DA's office believes it's premeditated, or else they couldn't add the lying in wait as a special circumstance. They're saying, and their narrative is that he lured her over for the purpose of this. And he is so stupid, in my opinion, doing the old, he gets her an Uber from Riverside to the Hollywood Hills. And
sorry, I think you just went on mute, Lauren. Come back. I think you just lost your audio for a second. Are you back? Talk. I don't know why you just went away, but it's weird because I see.
I know.
Oh wait, you're back. You're back.
Back. Okay.
Yeah. So what were you saying?
I'll just go back to saying he's so stupid.
Yeah.
He's so stupid because he orders her Uber from Riverside to his home in the Hollywood Hills. The Uber shows her getting dropped off at 10:10, and he's doing his whole at 10:30 when police believe she was already deceased. Where are you? Why aren't you here yet? Oh, you're so smart, David, because nobody can see the Uber app actually pulling into your house. And I'm sure she just hid in the bushes for a while, right? She didn't actually go into your house. So he was setting this up. And I tend to believe it because prosecutors laid out the night before, I believe, or maybe it was, a few nights before, but definitely leading up to this, she was making threats. She was upset. You're talking about a child who was led on by a man where she thought they had a future together. She sees him talking to all these other girls, and who knows? I don't want to make any allegations about their ages, but yeah, I'm sure there was quite a few girls, and yeah, she was upset, and so she was threatening things. We don't know those text messages yet; those haven't come out yet, but I have a feeling that those are going to be very, very damning to him.
And he was texting her even allegedly her phone even after she was dead, right? Was he?
Well, he only, I think it was one day after, basically after the 26th, which was 3 days after, nothing. That was it. So, and her phone, I think they determined her day or time of death because she had no communication on that phone after the 23rd. And by the way, that phone, David bought that for her. I don't know if you saw that. I mean,
Yep. Gave the friend $1,000 to give her the phone. And if you're a kid in middle school, you're like, $1,000. Awesome. But yes, folks, please remember to like the video because likes are free. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. A lot of people probably watch that are not subscribed. They just don't know it. And also, homework assignment. Tell a friend about Black Sheep Nation. Tell a friend about the Cult of Shadow. Tell a friend about the Flock of Black Sheep, or the Wizard of Radical Self-Respect, or the Shepherd of Black Sheep. Tell a friend.
Oh yeah, and the $1,000 had another child get the phone to her, right?
I was going to say, do you remember? And I don't know if this is actually it, but maybe the Reddit sleuths know, but there's a photo of David in a Lake Elsinore school parking lot talking to some high school kid. And I bet you that's it. Because I literally was like, what the hell is this guy doing in high school parking lots all the time? At that point, he's 19 years old, right? Because I think he's 21 now. So it's like, what is this kid doing? And I bet you that was it. I bet you that was it. But yeah, her parents took her phone away, and then he bought her another one. And
yeah, that's what I just thought about. I mean, like you brought up earlier the adults in this situation, and you know, you hate to put blame on anybody because at the end of the day, he's the one charged with murder.
Right.
But it just made me sad for parents when I thought they took the phone away, probably trying to keep her away from him, cut off communication, and then he finds a way to get her a new phone without them probably even knowing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm.
It's just very difficult as a parent to really lasso your kids when they are not working with you, they are working against you. It's the same thing with drugs and kids, right? If kids wants to do things, especially as they get older, they're going to find a way to do it a lot of times. And it's very unfortunate, but it absolutely happens.
I'm just thinking about myself at 13 and if an 18-year-old man, you don't have a shot. It really breaks my heart. And right, as parents, like we can only do so much, which is obviously I don't know the inner workings of her family, right? It like we discussed, it is concerning, a lot of it, the travel, whatever. But it's heartbreaking. And for me, it's like, David, if you did this, and if you are a Christian and a man of God like you say you are, right? Take responsibility.
Here the thing is, right? She was groomed, but she also probably thinks that she really wants it too. It's like she's subscribed. She is subscribed, and she's also now going out of her way to make sure it stays happening, right? So it's his fault. But if you're her parents and you're trying to deal with someone who is subscribed to a distorted version of reality, it's just like a cult. It's not that easy to break them free because their mind is gone, right? I'm going to try to invite Mark Vicente on the program. He has a new documentary coming out called The Narcissist Playbook. I was on his show, Mark Vicente's show, if you want to check me out there. But I think it would be interesting to speak to him about cult dynamics and how to talk to people that are in a cult, how to get them out. Because it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not like, oh, yes, just say this one thing and lock them in their rooms and they'll be fine. Like, no, not really.
Okay? Take responsibility and own what you did. diabolical or not. Okay. I mean, do not put her friends and family through this, and your own family. I mean, like I don't know much about his family. Clearly, I don't know if his brother is on his side based on a story post he did about he said something like all rapists and pedophiles like deserve to die or something like that. But his parents, per the attorney, they seem to be supporting him, whatever.
And they fought the grand jury. They fought testifying.
They fought it. Yes, they fought it. But and so I guess it's just like, you hear one side chirping saying, well, his mom knew everything. His parents, they allow this to happen. And it's just like, guys, we don't know all the details yet, right? We really don't. And I am sure his parents are hurting over this. What parent wouldn't hurt over this? So again, I just want to keep the blame on David. Yeah. I guess that's my goal here is like, keep it on David.
And just lastly, what happens next? I mean, obviously all these new documents came out. Do you know when the next hearing is, or sort of what's?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on May 12th, they have another status hearing.
I mean, does anyone not know this is Brian Hitton's channel? Right? We're watching Brian Hitton. Everyone knows that, right?
Which is what they had the other day on, Wednesday, the 29th. And then the preliminary hearing, which was supposed to be on May 1st, that is moved to May 25th. So, it's that Friday, basically it's like the Friday before Memorial Day, which I believe is the 25th or the 26th. And yeah, I mean, look, the DA's office was very upset that the preliminary hearing is not going to happen on May 1st. They were pissed at the defense saying, we had witnesses change vacations for this. You knew this was going to happen. And the defense, they were just like, they're not ready. And they also fought very hard for that document to stay sealed because of the high profile nature of the case. They said it was very one-sided. And the judge was just kind of like, like it's LA, like everything's high profile, like stop it. So yeah, I mean, I was initially like a pretrial hearing would be tough to happen right away without having all this evidence. And apparently like the LAPD was still uploading half of it last week. So yeah, but I feel like it'll happen I feel like it's got to happen by the 25th, the 26th.
Well, I appreciate you, Lauren. Thank you for giving me the scoop on everything.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
Really appreciate Lauren for taking the time to talk with me. Just an awful, awful case. I'll continue to stay on top of it and keep you guys posted. Appreciate you guys for watching my videos, for subscribing, and I'll talk to you guys later.
It's a rough one. So we have one more maybe to go through that is probably just going to go over the same things, though. We'll see what Law and Crime Network's spin is.
After months of secrecy, prosecutors have just revealed brand new, never before seen, never before heard alleged details in the horrific killing and disposal of a child's body in the David case. Alleged ongoing sexual abuse of a child, a vicious stabbing, a grisly alleged dismemberment with a chainsaw. The allegations against singer-songwriter David are on full display in this new court filing, providing graphic new details about what LA prosecutors claim he allegedly did to this 14-year-old girl and why. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Real quick, before we go any further, I got to tell you about our partner, Upside, okay? Upside is this app that gets you cash back, extra cash back on everyday purchases like gas, groceries, takeout. So here's what you do. You download Upside for free. You claim an offer. 21-year-old David Anthony Burke, the singer known as David, who skyrocketed to fame with songs like Romantic Homicide, has had a spectacular fall from grace. Months after 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez was found dead, her mutilated body reportedly found in David's Tesla at a Hollywood tow yard. Prosecutors have now charged David with first-degree murder, continuous sexual abuse of a child under 14, and unlawful mutilation of human remains. He's entered a not guilty plea. It's important to remember that he is innocent until proven guilty. I say that especially because it can be very hard to remember when we're about to get into these disturbing new alleged details that were revealed by prosecutors. And this is big because there has been so much secrecy to this case. I mean, remember, we just saw the autopsy report last week after it was sealed. In fact, we actually thought that we would have to wait for a preliminary hearing to learn any new details in this case. The preliminary hearing, of course, is where prosecutors try to present sufficient evidence to say, hey, look, we have enough evidence to move this case forward towards trial. And during an arraignment last week, his attorneys told the judge they wanted to get to that preliminary hearing right away.
Counsel, on behalf of your client, do you waive formal reading of the complaint, advisement of rights, including armed forces and veterans' rights, enter a plea of not guilty, denying any and all special allegations, enhancements, and priors?
Yes, Your Honor.
And requesting a preliminary hearing within the period?
Yes, Your Honor. From the media reports, apparently there have been 4 months of secret grand jury proceedings. We believe that Mr. Burke is entitled at the earliest opportunity to an open preliminary hearing and the proceedings not be done in secret. So we are asking for a preliminary hearing to be set at the earliest possible date on the 10th day. Your Honor, we believe the actual evidence will show David Burke did not murder Celeste Rivas Hernandez, nor was he the cause of her death. And we would like to be able to have the evidence come into the light of day at the early.
It's similar to the thing that Nick Reiner was behind too, right? He was behind that thing. I don't know why. Do they think he's a danger to them? Or is he a danger to himself?
Opportunity in order to establish that.
And that was seemingly to put the prosecutor's feet to the fire, right? What do you have? What's your evidence? There's been a lot of questions swirling over whether, you didn't get a grand jury indictment, right? Is there a weakness in this case? Remember, despite apparently multiple secret grand juries considering this case, evaluating evidence, hearing evidence, for whatever reason, they chose not to indict, or maybe they weren't asked to indict. Could have just been an investigative grand jury or investigative grand juries. Which means now it's up to prosecutors to convince the court in a preliminary hearing that there's enough evidence to move this case towards trial. The defense will have an opportunity to challenge that. But when David's attorneys returned to court yesterday to discuss when a preliminary hearing would happen, they said the original date of Friday, this Friday, was in fact too soon. They haven't had nearly enough time to review the huge amount of evidence to challenge it at a hearing. So this preliminary hearing has been pushed back to May 26th. But that's not even the big news. This is what I have in my hands. Because for the first time, prosecutors are laying out some of the alleged evidence they have against David and what they claim they could prove at an eventual trial. And I will warn you right now, the claims in this document are incredibly disturbing. Allegations that he stabbed this 14-year-old girl to death to keep her from revealing that he had been sexually abusing her. That's the allegation. That he allegedly used a chainsaw.
So here's a question for you, chap. Do you think this is his first time doing this? I think this might be his first time ending someone's life if he's guilty, but perhaps not his first time with CSA. That's what I would think. Not his first time with that, but perhaps the first time killing. But that's only because he's young. Give it some time, probably would have been more. But what do you think, chat? Do you think this is his first time, or do you think there might be other victims out there? Press 1 if you think this is his first time. Press 2 if you think there might be other victims out there.
To cut up her body.
And I say victims, I mean dead victims. I don't think this was his first time with CSA.
Body in an inflatable kiddie pool in the garage. More details regarding this alleged secret, illegal sexual relationship. More importantly, for the prosecution's case, what evidence they have to prove that. And that's what I want to get into. So according to investigators, Celeste was last seen or heard from on April 23rd, 2025, when David, according to prosecutors, sent a rideshare car to pick her up from her hometown of Lake Elsinore and bring her back to the home that he was apparently renting in the Hollywood Hills, a trip of more than 80 miles. Prosecutors claim she was exchanging messages with David during this ride, and then she apparently never uses the phone again. Celeste's dismembered body was found months later on September 8th in a Tesla Model X, allegedly registered to David. And according to this filing, the car had been parked on the street just 400 feet from where David was staying. And then it was towed. The manager at the tow yard reported a horrific smell, flies around the front trunk, and that's when authorities discovered Celeste's body. According to this document, it's called the People's Brief regarding preliminary hearing evidence, quote, surveillance video and other evidence confirmed defendant, meaning David, was the last person to drive the vehicle on July 29th, 2025, before he left Los Angeles on a concert tour. So that's about.
So he was officially the last person to drive that vehicle. That's pretty damning, I would say. Do you think he didn't know what was in the frunk? I think he knew. Does anyone think he doesn't know? He didn't know what was in the frunk? The frunk is the Tesla's trunk, because in a Tesla, it's in the front. So does anyone think he didn't know what was going on there? I mean, press 1 if you think he didn't know, but press 2 if you think, no, he absolutely knew.
About what, a month or so before the car was towed and the body was found. It's not clear if anyone else actually moved the car or had any knowledge of what was reportedly inside. I want you to keep that in mind. We're going to talk about it later. There's something in the filing that I thought was really interesting. But it goes on to say, quote, at the tow yard, LAPD detectives opened the Tesla's front storage compartment and observed a black cadaver bag covered in insects. Inside the bag, they discovered a severely decomposed head and torso. A plastic garbage bag beneath the black cadaver bag contained the dismembered arms and legs. However, the victim's ring and pinky fingers on her left hand had been amputated and were not found in the Tesla. On September 16, 2025, the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Department positively identified the body from dental records as belonging to the victim. But this is the part that's new, okay? The filing claims that LAPD robbery homicide detectives determined that Celeste and David met in January of 2022 when she was just 11 years old. That he allegedly began a sexual relationship with Celeste when she was 13. David was 18. And the court paperwork revealed that investigators have been looking into David for quite some time. The filing says detectives learned the victim had been reported missing to the Riverside County Sheriff's Department by her family, who live in Lake Elsinore, in February and April 2024. RCSD telephonically contacted defendant on February 17, 2024, after they identified a phone number in the victim's phone records that belonged to him. During the call, defendant claimed he had spoken to the victim last on February 13th or 14th, 2024, but stated he was unaware she was a minor or that she had been reported missing. RCSD advised him that Los Angeles Sheriff's Department deputies would be coming to his home. On that day, defendant was living at 804 North Dehaney Place in West Hollywood. RCSD requested that LASD conduct a welfare check at defendant's home. LASD deputies went to defendant's home that night at 8:15 p.m. and informed him the victim was a 13-year-old runaway. Defendant again claimed he was unaware she was a minor and he had only met the victim once in person.
I mean, that sounds like a bunch of BS that he was unaware. I think he knew, and I think he liked it.
November of 2023. However, defendant showed deputies a yearbook photo of the victim he had on his cell phone. Although he claimed to be unaware of where the victim was at the time, she returned home to.
So he told on himself by accident. Defendant showed deputies a yearbook photo of the victim he had on his cell phone. So he knew. Yearbook? Middle school yearbook?
Days later. By the way, you're seeing how in-depth this investigation was, and maybe kind of gives us an idea of why it took so long for there to be an arrest and for these charges and for the evidence to develop. But remember, prosecutors claim he killed her to keep her quiet about this supposed relationship, to not have her expose him to ruin his career. Just keep that in mind. So the filing continues, quote, despite being informed by law enforcement the victim was only 13, defendant continued to pursue her. After the victim returned home in February 2024, her parents took her cell phone away. Defendant drove to Lake Elsinore and paid a junior high school student in the victim's class $1,000 to give the victim a cell phone.
So here it is. Her parents were probably trying to do the right thing, take her phone away. A responsible parental move. But then d4vd, the disgraceful, vile degenerate, gives one of Celeste's friends $1,000 to give her a cell phone to get around the parents' boundaries. What do you know?
And purchased so they could stay in contact. Throughout 2024, the victim spent a significant amount of time with defendant, including summer weekends at his home in the Hollywood Hills and traveling with him to Las Vegas, London, and Texas to meet his family. So now I'm thinking travel records, right? I'm thinking how in-depth this investigation was. And by the way, this is the first time we're hearing just how often Celeste was with, or allegedly was with, this much older man. And it really speaks to how many people were potentially aware that he was maybe in this relationship with a younger girl, right? Members of online forums that David and Celeste were reportedly part of have said they didn't know Celeste was so young, thinking she was David's age. But if she was traveling with him to different places and meeting these people in a circle, did none of them suspect that something was maybe amiss here? I mean, again, assuming these allegations are true. You go back to the filing, quote, text exchanges between the victim and defendant contain references to sex, pregnancy, abortion, and use of the Plan B emergency contraceptive. There are also explicit photographs documenting and corroborating their sexual relationship. In November 2024, defendant and the victim broke up, although they continued to communicate, and text messages suggest they also continued to have sexual relations. See, that's the kind of alleged evidence that is incredibly compelling. What separates this from other cases of, let's say, a he said, she said, right? That's the kind of alleged evidence that supports the sex charge, but goes to the special circumstances of killing a witness, right? Remember, to support the special circumstances allegations, which you would get life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder charge or the death penalty, allegedly killing her because she's a witness to this, or allegedly killing her to silence her. It's evidence of this purported sexual relationship that's really problematic, or potentially really problematic for David.
And by the way, I have to tell you, this just came out at the time of this recording. So the death certificate for Celeste, and this is per reporting from TMZ, there's a change. It used to say that she was not pregnant. Now it's saying that section is marked U for unknown. So what is this suggesting? That it was possible she could have been pregnant? Not entirely clear.
Per prosecutors, quote, April 23rd, 2025 is the likely date of the victim's death and when all her cellular activity ceased. The night prior, April 22nd, 2025, defendant and the victim engaged in a lengthy argument described in detail in their text messages. The messages reveal the victim's jealousy over defendant's relationships with other women, as defendant led her to believe they had a future together. She became extremely upset and threatened to disclose damaging information about her relationship with defendant to end his career and destroy his life. Defendant's first studio album was due to be released on April 25th, 2025. So
I mean, and d4vd would have no one to blame but himself for that, though, right? I mean, he did it. He did it. And if the truth came out, he would have been screwed. But that's his fault.
2 days later, he had an emerging multi-million-dollar career already in progress. He also had multiple product endorsements, which were highly profitable. I mean, to give you an idea about what was at stake and what the prosecution may use at trial or a preliminary hearing, I mean, we told you in an episode yesterday that after David was arrested on murder and mutilation charges, the video game Fortnite announced it was going to refund players who made David-related purchases in the game, saying in a statement, we hear the concerns. We have a bunch of changes we're rolling out over time. The first one will be available on Tuesday, April 28th, when anyone who purchased one of these items will be able to get an immediate self-service refund. And right now, players who request refunds for David Cosmetics via player support can be refunded. And according to reporting from the Houston Chronicle, David's song, Locked and Loaded, became the game's first official theme song in 2025. Now he's being canceled across the board.
There's other song, Romantic Homicide.
You have companies like Universal Music Group working to remove the songs that he apparently did in collaboration with their artists from streaming platforms. And I say all that because, again, think about what was going on in his life. Think about the height of his career at that time. I have to imagine that prosecutors are going to use this to establish the narrative that he couldn't let Celeste expose him, right? Again, these are just allegations. This is the prosecution's narrative, but you see where they're going. So investigators contend that April 23rd was when Celeste...
And yeah, I mean, the motive makes sense to me. Right? That's a motive. He doesn't want to ruin his career because rather than let the truth come out, he's like, well, I'm going to get rid of the truth. I'm going to take it out. And that's what he did. Because clearly he didn't care about... And also, I think it's also a little bit of Michael McKee in there too, where if I lose control of you, no one can have you. And I think there's an element of that in there too.
Celeste was killed soon after arriving at that house in the Hollywood Hills. Quote, at approximately 8:40 p.m. on April 23rd, 2025, defendant sent an Uber to transport the victim from her Lake Elsinore home to his residence. They communicated before and during her Uber ride, which dropped her off at defendant's Hollywood Hills home around 10:10 p.m. At approximately 10:30 p.m., defendant sent text messages to the victim inquiring where she was. The people contend this was part of defendant's premeditated plan to cover up the murder, as she was already dead by this time. If that's true, that is a quick turnaround from when she arrived to when she was killed, right? And that goes to that premeditation aspect, lying in wait. Quote, knowing he had to silence the victim before she ruined his music career as she had threatened, very soon after her arrival at his home, defendant stabbed the victim to death multiple times and stood by while she bled out. At no time did he call law enforcement or 911 or take her to an emergency room to attempt to save her life. Despite knowing she was dead and her family was trying to find her, the evidence will show defendant lied and claimed he didn't know where she was. In fact, defendant drove to Santa Barbara County. This is something we've always talked about before. Drove to Santa Barbara County immediately after the victim died, attempting to dispose of her property and destroy evidence. At approximately 11:30 p.m. on April 23rd, 2025, he drove away from his home as he...
I wonder what evidence they're referring to here. Did they track the Tesla or something, or whatever car he was driving?
texted and called the victim's phone asking where she was. Again, these were acts calculated and planned to set up his defense within a very short timeline after the victim's vicious murder. Defendant drove his Tesla north on the 101 freeway to San Marcos Pass Road, SR 154, near Lake Cachuma in Santa Barbara County. He returned home early the following morning on April 24th, 2025, before going to a radio interview for the release of his album that week. He sent 2 additional texts to the victim's phone that day, which obviously went unanswered because she was already dead. After April 26, 2025, defendant never attempted to contact her again. And if that's true, that would be strange, right? Because if that's the case and he had no idea what happened to her, wouldn't he be desperately trying to get a hold of her? I think
that's a good point there too, isn't it? That he knew she was gone, or else why would he stop trying to text her? As obsessive and compulsive and controlling as he was, doesn't make sense for him to stop, right? Unless he knows she's no longer with us.
that's an argument that would be put forward by prosecutors. And then the filing gets into the incredibly disturbing details of how David allegedly cut Celeste's body into pieces. Quote, tellingly, defendant subsequently purchased tools to carry out his plot to dismember or dispose of the victim's body. On April 24, 2025, defendant ordered a shovel from Home Depot that was delivered to his home from Postmates. On May 1st, 2025, defendant ordered and subsequently Amazon delivered 2 chainsaws to his home. On May 5th, 2025, defendant ordered and Amazon subsequently delivered a body.
So what I don't get is he did all this stuff, but then why did they do such a shitty job like disposing of the body? They didn't even bury her. Like, what the hell are you guys doing? You didn't use the incinerator, it doesn't sound like, or whatever that 65-gallon thing was. Like what did they do? Did they just give up? I don't understand it.
Bag, heavy-duty laundry bags, and a blue inflatable pool to his home. He made these purchases under the fake name Victoria Mendez. On May 8th, 2025, defendant returned to the same area in Santa Barbara County, leaving his home around 11:30 p.m. He returned to the area again on May 31st, 2025. This is an isolated site off SR 154 where the victim's identification was subsequently discovered in January 2026. Additionally, on July 7th, 2025, defendant ordered and subsequently Amazon delivered a burn cage to his home under the same fake name as part of his plan to incinerate evidence. We've talked about that before with Steve Fisher, the private investigator. Quote, moreover, defendant took horrifying measures to destroy and discard the victim's body. After placing her body into the blue inflatable pool to prevent her blood from spilling onto his garage floor, defendant used a chainsaw and perhaps other tools to cut off her limbs. Small blue plastic fragments were found embedded in the victim's remains, which were collected by the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner's Department. The fragments were analyzed by the LAPD's Forensic Science Division Trace Analysis Unit. An expert was able to match a physical fit match from the blue fragments to the blue inflatable pool purchased by defendant in May 2025. In order to distance himself from the victim, he amputated her left ring and pinky fingers because her ring finger contained a tattoo of his name. Her fingers have not been recovered. Defendant then placed her head and torso into the cadaver bag.
So it contained a tattoo of his name. And what do you want to bet that was a souvenir? I said that when they said it before too, but I'm pretty sure that's what that was, a souvenir.
Purchased. He placed her limbs into a garbage bag, which he deposited into his front trunk, laying the cadaver bag on top. For several weeks or possibly months, defendant left the victim's body to decompose inside his Tesla. Let me stop right there. As you can see, prosecutors are going to claim they have digital evidence, forensic evidence, purchase history to all support this. I have to imagine this will be challenged by the defense with their own experts. And if there's certain items of evidence, body parts that are missing, they'll try to make room for reasonable doubt. But it's really, you're seeing now how they are building this case and what they've been doing. I mean, Steve Fisher talked about, what was it, like 54 search warrants were issued in this case. And this, by the way, is all important because we always wondered, did David have help, right? This is a monumental alleged task, allegedly done by a 20-year-old singer by himself. But I will tell you, the filing does make you question if maybe, you know what, maybe he did allegedly act alone. The filing states that David, quote, lied to friends, business associates, and others about the strong smell of decay in and around the home and the car. When LAPD served the search warrant at the house after Celeste was identified, they reportedly found all sorts of evidence in the garage to support dismemberment, including biological evidence that tested positive for blood. They say it matched the victim's unique genetic profile, as well as the inflatable pool, which had these multiple, quote, linear cuts. And I want to go through the list of evidence that the state provides, which it says will be able to present at trial to prove David's guilt. Again, allegations, but let me go through this. And by the way, photos and videos of some of that evidence was released on X by private investigator Steve Fisher, who's been on this case from the beginning. He was hired by the owner of the Hollywood Hills home that David was apparently renting, who had a lot of questions about just what was going on at this property when Celeste's body was found. And the Tesla was allegedly connected back to the singer. But since then, I've spoken with Steve many times about what he's been able to uncover, and we're going to get to that in just a moment. But back to this evidence list. First, quote, the description of photographs depicting the victim naked, as well as while she was engaged with defendant in sexual activity when she was 13, as this evidence constitutes child sexual abuse material. The photographs themselves will not be presented. While all possible charges that could be proven were not filed, the CSAM is proof of their ongoing sexual relationship while the victim was 13 and 14 years old. I also do wonder if you're looking at potential federal charges here. Quote, numerous text messages between defendant and the victim evidencing their sexual relationship, pregnancy, abortion, use of Plan B, emergency contraception. Messages through March 2025 prove defendant continued to manipulate the victim as she messaged, all we do is have sex and just hang out. Man, I want more than that for myself. These messages were obtained from defendant.
Who said that? Numerous text messages between defendant and the victim evidencing their sexual relationship, pregnancy, abortion, and use of Plan B, emergency contraception. Messages through March 2025 prove defendant continued to manipulate the victim as she messaged, all we do is have sex and just hang out. Man, I want more than that for myself. These messages were obtained from defendant's iCloud data. I mean, can you imagine her saying this at 13? Like I said, I have a niece who is 13, and I couldn't even imagine, I can't even imagine something like that going on with her, because she seems like so much younger to me, especially since when you know them from birth, right? But this is a very unique scenario here. And I guess maybe that's where the ring thing came in too, right? He's like, oh, okay, well, I'll offer to marry you.
It's iCloud data. Defendant's cellular activity and communications derived from defendant's iPhone and Tesla, which demonstrate defendant's activities from April 22nd, 2025 to April 24th, 2025, including a trip to Santa Barbara County in the middle of the night after the victim arrived at his Hollywood Hills home. Surveillance video of defendant driving his Tesla on July 29, 2025 for the last time before parking the vehicle and leaving on tour at the end of July. So Steve Fisher shared the surveillance video after the hearing on X, reportedly showing the Tesla one of the last times it was driven. It's believed that Celeste's dismembered remains were inside that front trunk. And the list of potential evidence continues, quote, DNA evidence developed from blood stains collected from defendant's garage, which matched the victim's genetic profile, proof of defendant's Amazon purchases and deliveries to his residence, including 2 chainsaws, a body bag, an inflatable pool, heavy-duty laundry bags, a burn cage after April 24th, 2025. Steve also shared photos of some of these alleged packages. You can see the deliveries are addressed to Victoria Mendez. Not clear why David would allegedly use that particular name. Quote, proof of defendant's purchase and delivery from Postmates of a shovel from Home Depot to his home on April 24th, 2025. Uber records showing defendant's transaction where he ordered an Uber to pick up the victim from her Lake Elsinore home and transport her to his residence the night of April 23rd.
Now, that's an interesting thing there, right? So what do her parents think? Does she like sneak out of the house to do that? Or the parents are like, oh, what's going on out there? Oh, I've ordered an Uber for myself and I'm 13 years old. Like, how do you think she did that? Like, she just sneak out? What did she say? I don't know.
2025. Proof of defendant's lucrative career as a singer-songwriter prior to April 23rd, 2025. Defendant had an album release party on the night of April 24th, 2025, before embarking on an international tour in late July 2025. Text message exchanges between defendant and the victim on April 22nd and April 23rd, 2025, where the victim threatened to expose defendant and destroy his career. The prosecution has issued numerous subpoenas and is prepared to proceed with the preliminary hearing. Now, as I mentioned before, the court, again, decided to push this back to May 26th, and the delay was frustrating for a lot of people, including Steve Fisher. He's been very vocal on social media about what seemed to be a lack of transparency, a slow investigation on the part of authorities. Remember, David wasn't arrested until 1 year after, when prosecutors believe Celeste was killed. She was last seen or heard from in April 2025. Her body was found in the Tesla in September. And then
so April 2025 till September. So it's April, May, June, July, August. So 6 months about.
David was taken into custody, 10 days ago? So yesterday, after the delay, he tweeted, quote,
from April 2025 to 2026 April, he's a free man the entire time. Which makes you wonder, why didn't he go to like Vietnam or something like that? Like, as Nancy Grace was worried that Brian Hooker might go to Vietnam. Why wouldn't he go to a place that won't extradite you? Why wouldn't he go hang out with like Roman Polanski in France or something?
The David hearing continued until May 26. The speedy preliminary was a bluff by the defense. The game of hide the ball from the public has started. The judge agreed to put a protective order on the search warrants and affidavits, as well as the grand jury transcripts. So much for an open and transparent system. David's defense even asked for a simple brief to be sealed. After running the worst PR campaign in history the last 7 months, not coming out with a single statement supporting their client, the defense now thinks the public will form a poor opinion of their client if the public sees any of the discovery. His lawyers seem more like publicists than criminal trial litigators. Hashtag Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Now, I had a chance to speak with Steve, as well as certified death investigator Joseph Scott Morgan, last night on my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, and they talked more about these.
And you know what? We just talked to both of them with Nancy Grace.
Alleged grisly details. Take a listen.
We did find a chainsaw. We found a burn cage, and we knew that they were ordered in the name of this Victoria Mendez. We disclosed that it was, in a fake name, and but we didn't know if that was a real person or not. However, all these things, and there was more things that were delivered to the house in that name, and we couldn't get past the chainsaw or the burn cage. Just there was no reasonable use to have it there.
I've had a couple of cases involving chainsaws over the course of my career, and I'll just put it to you this way: the deposition of tissue and blood, because with a regular handsaw, you might get a little tissue, you're gonna have a lot of blood. This is going to sling actual tissue everywhere. And so the idea that this could be cleaned up completely, there's no way.
Absolutely horrific.
Could you imagine if the penalty they give people, is how you killed the victim is how you shall be killed by justice. How about that? That, I mean, could anyone say that wasn't fair? Oh, however you killed the victim, we're going to kill you that way too. Capital punishment. That would be interesting
to think about. And I will just say our hearts, our prayers, our thoughts are really going out to Celeste's family at this time. We've all been, demanding answers, but to finally learn some of these gruesome alleged details about what purportedly happened to their loved one, that's a different kind of torture, right? And the teen's family has not yet spoken publicly about the case per se. They did release a statement through their attorney after David's arrest saying, we would like to thank the Los Angeles Police Department and the district attorney.
You know what they would say? Depending on the courts, they would say, oh, that's cruel and unusual to kill them the way they killed others. And I'd say, well, then what does that say? If it's cruel and unusual just to match their actions, then they're getting off easy, is what I would say. If matching their actions is cruel and unusual, anything less than that is getting off easy. Even if it's just lethal injection, getting off easy.
Office for their hard work. We would also like to thank
and that's where the medieval folks, they got their, they knew how to torture some folks in the medieval times. They had some creative methods. But when they put someone up there, like whether it was the rack or burning you at the stake, they got their money's worth. They got their money's worth of punishment, that's for sure.
The people of Lake Elsinore for all their support. Celeste was a beautiful, strong girl who loved to sing and dance. Every Friday night was movie night, and we spent wonderful times together. We love her very much, and she always told us that she loved us. We miss her deeply. All we want is justice for Celeste. And I also spoke with Steve for an episode of Sidebar yesterday to get his take on the dozens of search warrants reportedly filed in this case I mentioned before, but take a look. Let me ask you this, 54, 55 search warrants, is that unusual? I mean, that seems like a lot. And why, how specific do you think each one was? What do you think they were for?
Well, you definitely are going to have.
I remember this, folks, in the 1600s, 1700s in America, there used to be a rule. And the rule was if you're convicted of murder, you needed to be hanged within 48 hours. So that was their rule. And that was back in the day because they didn't want vigilantes running around. Because, I mean, the Wild Wild West, we use it as an expression now, but there was the Wild Wild West for a little bit. And the sheriffs in those days would have discretion. Like, it's up. You kill someone, well, you're going to be hanged within 48 hours to set an example out of it. And sad fact, the youngest person ever was a 12-year-old girl. I think it was in the 1700s. A 12-year-old girl was reportedly killed or hung because she killed a 5-year-old. But she was like mentally disabled or something. So I wonder how guilty she really was. But look it up. Youngest girl ever executed, 12 years old. And she was an Indian.
Apple with iCloud and his individual devices. I can tell you that he does have a lot of actual devices, a lot of phones. And then you're going to have Google and stuff like that. But there was a search warrant issued as late as April 20th. So after his arrest. And there was another one that looks like it falls on like the 5th or the 6th of April. So they were issuing search warrants right up. I think there was a total of 7 that I saw that were issued in 2026.
Do you think that's something he had on him at the time of the arrest or something at the property? Where?
By the way, folks, please remember to like the video. Shadow wants me to remind you all, spank the like button. Leave your DNA of choice on the like button. Hit the like button if you would like to see d4vd executed in the same way that he killed others. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you're lurking over there, make sure you say hello to the flock of black sheep. And all of this, of course, is provided that d4vd is guilty, by the way. And as always, super chats, super stickers, becoming a channel member or gifting channel memberships, great way to support the channel. They help me pay for Shadow the Night Owl's soy-free Hootie Snacks. And thank you very much for all the support I've been getting so far.
He was arrested?
I think they probably had some sort of, I think that when they when they arrested him, they cataloged, what was there, and then they got a warrant immediately, kind of like they did with the car originally. They went there, they verified that there was a smell in the car. They immediately got a search warrant to enter the car. Probably the same thing. And Beth alluded to that. Actually, she said that she didn't know at the time if there was going to be significance from those returns or not.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that those warrants also include materials possessed by other individuals that are not David?
Certainly, I definitely think there's going to be at least cloud type of data, other Facebook account or Instagram accounts, Meta, let's call it, and iCloud. They specifically leaned into iCloud a lot. They said that there was over 10 terabytes of data from one iCloud account. So, listen, I can kind of see, the guy's a musician. He's probably got a ton of music, ton of video, raw video and everything backed up there, but it's still a massive account. I know I've heard reports of them saying 10 terabytes of child porn. I don't think that's the case. I think it's a 10 terabyte account. So
wasn't it 40 terabytes? Wasn't there 40 terabytes of data the prosecution had? Now it's 10.
Yes, I think others are wrapped up in this. I think all his inner circle people have had all their accounts subject to search warrant, probably their social media accounts, and including his management.
I'm glad you mentioned. I mean, this is something we talked about previously. Prosecutors say he was in possession of child pornography. We don't know if it was allegedly of Celeste or someone else, but that was interesting and made me wonder if there could be federal charges on the horizon for him. Real quick, if they unseal these search warrants, you, me, everyone's going to be able to see them?
We'll be able to see who they were served upon, and we'll be able to see what the return was. Not saying the data, but the return filed by the police saying we recovered, this account, data from this account, whatever. We'll see on a general basis, and we'll see who it was served upon, what they were looking for, and what the probable cause was, which is going to be the real tell in this thing, what the probable cause was to get the search warrant.
So I encourage you to check out that full interview. It's up right now on Law and Crime's YouTube channel. We will, of course, continue to follow this case, bring you any updates as soon as we learn them. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can follow us also on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live.
All right. That's, of course, Law and Crime Network, Jesse Weber Live. And that's really about it for the evening here. We went over 3 videos about the, what did I call him? Disgraceful, vile, deranged d4vd. Pro-hormone. I like a good pro-hormone. Or a, what's the other word they're called? There's some good pro-hormones out there. They mimic testosterone. Or DHT. All right, Zombits, you have a great night there, Miss. Thank you for modding. Thank you to Miss Kim for modding as well. I've heard of that one. Is it Smooth Rooster? I take a supplement that's a testosterone supplement. I wouldn't be surprised if it's spiked with something, though, honestly. Got like poison ivy all over myself from freaking mowing the lawn. Patronized. Patronized, not in the form that we usually talk about, Ward. All right, Tim, you have a great night as well. Rooster, you have a great night. Ward, great night to you too, sir. Julie Reagan, Mike. Shadow says good night to the owls in Harper's Ferry. Good morning to Maureen from across the pond. Rocky. Thank you for like number 75. Shadow and I appreciate it. Lindsay, thank you for all of your support. Alexander, I don't remember seeing you here before, but thanks for stopping by. Welcome, Alexander, folks, to the chat. Hopefully he decides to subscribe to the channel. I guess Laura has turned away for the evening, but Laura is a great mod for the channel too. DD, you have a great night, DD. Forget me. Have a great night. Tim, of course, have a great night as well. D and DD. And I guess Bethany's gone as well. Teresa, you have a great night. Dana, have a great night. Ah, Tim's Avenue. Walk me down to Electric Avenue, and then Shadow will take you higher. How about that? Nice. Thank you, Songbits. Songbits, you do a good job welcoming the people, as does Miss Kim. By the way, Livin was here for the members only live stream, but then has not graced us with her presence since. I have to get on her. All right, Seeking. Yep, I appreciate that. It's a little bit longer, but 2 hours and 19 minutes so far. Appreciate all the support from everybody. And I'll be back again tomorrow night, of course. We will see what is on the docket for tomorrow. So, Shadow and I wish you all a great evening. Make sure you've liked the video if you're still here. Make sure you're subscribed. Snoop, you have a great night there, Snoop. Rooster is part of the fun group. Rooster knows. Rooster is also kind of a cousin to Shadow, the night owl, I guess. Same family. I'm a football games. Oh, okay. Well, we can try changing up some of the times in case some of the members can't be at some of the times, right? User, you have a great night too, User. Yes, they do have quite a few rights. I mean, here's the one big thing is you got to make sure you're not convicting innocent people. I agree, that's a thing. But once you're guilty, consequences. That's what I would say. But all right, folks, over and out.